is going on, everyone? This is Miles with Windows Central Gaming, and welcome to episode 12 of Xbox Chaturdays. Today, we have a pretty awesome guest lined up. We have Joe Winter, the essentially one-man developer of the upcoming Xbox exclusive, Song of Iron. Joe, how are you doing
Hey,
on this fine Saturday morning?
good, good. I'm sleepy, but we're
A
good.
little sleepy? You got some coffee? You ready to get into it? And I'm going to pick your brain
Yeah,
a
let's
little
do it.
bit, actually a bit about game development. But for those of you tuning
Yeah.
in, thank you. Today's focus for the show is going to be talking a little bit about the inspirations for Song of Iron. We're going to be talking about Joe's experience with AAA development versus indie development and a bunch more. So thanks for tuning in. If you're new to the show, welcome. Smash like gamers, all that good stuff. And I appreciate you guys hanging out. So, Joe, for those of you who don't know who you are, for those in the chat that don't know who you are, give us the quick rundown on Joe Winter, the man behind the game.
Sure. Yeah. I'm the developer of Song of Iron. It's a passion project that I started about a year and a half ago, but I've been in the gaming industry for almost 15 years now. I started at an arcade place that worked on Big Buck Hunter, if you know that,
Oh
like
yeah,
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 the classic
definitely.
bar room. Yeah, so I worked on the HD version, and then they also did the Terminator Salvation cabinet, and I worked on that also, which was pretty fun. Just a little bit. I was only there for 8 or 9 months or something. From there, I got a job at Cryptic Studios where I worked on a bunch of MMOs, Champions Online, City of Hero, or not City of Heroes, Champions Online, Star Trek Online, and Neverwinter, uh, which was a great place to learn to be a really fast animator, because MMOs is all about content. So we had to set a just pump out content. Um, and then from there, I got a job at 343 working on Halo 5, and I continued that on to Infinite. And I was there for 6 years until leaving actually about 2 weeks ago, to go full time on Song of Iron.
Nice. So you can tell us the
Yeah.
ending of Halo Infinite then? That's
Yeah, I could, but I will not.
okay. I have to ask.
Yeah,
Cool. So with that being said, Song of Iron is an Xbox console exclusive. It's launching on Steam as well.
yeah,
I,
correct.
I
Yeah.
assume you working on Halo is kind of what got the conversations going in regards of this being an Xbox exclusive, or what was the reason that you decided on the console front to partner with Xbox?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, that connection had nothing to do with the start of it. In fact, once that got going, the internal Microsoft like anti-corruption group had to get involved to just make sure that nothing fuzzy was going on, since I already worked for Microsoft. But in short, I had a Reddit post that did really well in February or March or something, early in the year, and they found me sort of naturally through that post and reached out. We started talking, and I had always intended, to just do Steam, and
Mhm.
so just having any option at all was great. And they also sort of made it so I don't need a publisher because there's support, and then it was sort of the best of both worlds for me. So I was really excited about it.
Yeah, that's super cool because yeah, with Steam I know you can self-publish, and with Xbox in some degree I know you can as well. So I'm sure that. So in that regards, you are doing pretty much everything then. You're dealing with the business side, the development side, everything, right?
Y- Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. I mean, I've got myself a lawyer now, and I've got myself like a finance person just to help offload that stress of things that I have no clue how to deal with. But yeah, other than that, I have some audio help, a composer, and some sound design. But everything else is I'm doing all that stuff, and it's a lot. It's crazy, but yeah, it's fun too.
That's awesome. So we talked a little bit before the show went live. So you've been working on Song of Iron for about a year and a half total now.
Hmm.
Does that include
Yeah, about a year.
pre-production or?
Yeah, I want to say I started in the beginning of July last year, about give or take, maybe a month before that, but yeah, about that.
That's
Yeah, it
awesome.
started. Yeah, it'd been working on a different solo project, sort of like a huge open world survival, DayZ ish thing. and very quickly realized that I was way out of my depths and how big that would have been. And so I just decided to totally stop it, and I wanted to keep going because I was having so much fun in Unreal doing my own thing. But I just put down a bunch of really strict guidelines for myself, like no multiplayer, um, side scroller only, just like a bunch of things to make it super, super simple, so that it could be done. Otherwise, you can just drown in complexity super fast.
Yeah,
So
especially if you are
I
trying to do everything by yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So I just laid down some pretty simple frameworks for myself, and it just moved in that direction. And yeah, and then slowly Song of Iron emerged out of that.
Rad, rad. So, Song of
Yeah.
Iron, the name, is that one of those times
Mhm.
where you had the name before the concept, or did you have the concept before the name, and that kind of that just rang
I
true to you, or is there any
it,
origin to the name?
they kind of came together at the same time. I had like okay, side scroller. As an animator, I wanted to do stuff that'd be really animation centric, and so fighting is sort of a natural thing for that. For me, it's what I like to do a lot. Animate fighting, not fighting. Uh, and so it slowly became a Viking thing, and then I just had this like week long name hunt. If you've ever done it or tried to, start a website or just a channel or anything, you go, "Oh, is this name taken?" Yep, everybody knows that. And then and then I found Song of Iron. It rang really well for me, and it didn't exist anywhere. And it was just like, this is absolutely where I want it to go.
So you did,
And I love the kind of double meaning of it. I think it's cool. So
yeah.
just like the sound of battle, and then literally the song of it and all that stuff. So.
Did the old Google test, just go to Google and just type
Yeah,
in every possible
yeah,
name you had running through your head.
yeah, exactly. It's like GoDaddy and Google. It's like, has this website been
Okay, is
taken?
this domain? Can I get this
Does
domain?
yeah,
Oh, damn.
if I search it, is there anything that's named that for 10 pages or something?
Were there any that you loved that were taken? Any that you were like pretty set on that were taken? Just
Yeah, I'm
just
trying to remember.
anecdotally.
I don't think so. I had started just calling it baking, just really simple, and I probably knew that was never gonna make it, just because there's no way. So I was pretty open to a good name, and yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. So, quick shout out to some of the folks in the chat: Mr. Joanna Dark, Sergeant Rake, Synodex, Andy K. Thank you all for hanging out with us today. Mr. Joanna Dark here has a question. Will we have Halo Spartan Armor DLC for Song of Iron?
Oh, that's a good question. Start tweeting Microsoft and see if they want.
Yeah, I'm
See if
sure
they
there's
want
some
to partner with you.
legalities involved with you just putting Halo in your game.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that could be
so
pretty cool.
you mentioned that you were working on Halo 5 and Halo Infinite, um,
Yeah,
big AAA games, obviously. So
yeah.
you had been working on Song of Iron alongside those. What ultimately made you decide that, hey, I don't necessarily want to dedicate as much time in the AAA space. I want to try to do my own project. What was was there anything that ultimately decided that change for you?
Yeah, I think I mean, you probably could poll all people in game industry and ask them if they wanted to start their own studio, and more than half are going to say yes, even if they don't really mean it. Like, it sounds awesome, and so of course they want to. And
Mhm.
I'm definitely in that group. I tried it a couple years back with some friends, and it didn't work out, which is fine. Learned a ton, and that's probably a huge part of why this is going so much better. Um, I think the biggest thing, the if there was one point, it's the sort of the purity of the idea that you can do in indie that is really hard in a AAA studio. Um, and what I mean by that is, Song of Iron has a concept. It's my concept, and because I'm doing every piece, that concept is the same throughout. At a AAA studio, when you got hundreds of people or 1,000 people, you have a director says, "This is my idea," and then it goes to the managers, and they go, "Okay, I think this is what the director wants," and then that goes down. It's this tree, and then it's just this long game of telephone. And obviously, you're checking and making sure, and they'll get feedback, but it's hard to get all these people as excited as this person, and then inevitably, what happens is you make, um, you have to make compromises, and you do this stuff, and then so that core concept gets diluted.
Mhm.
And that's really painful for me because and I mean, everybody using games, but animators, I think, are very emotionally attached to what they're working on. It's like a lot of artists, it's like you're trying to pour emotion into an acting piece or combat or whatever, and then that as that shifts back and forth and things change, it can be pretty painful. So uh, it's been wonderful to work on Song of Iron because it's all like, I want to do this, so I do it, and
The executive decision. This is happening. I'm
yeah,
putting this
executive
in the
decision.
game.
I'll check with the boss, and then we'll
Shoot yourself a quick text like, yeah, yeah, okay, I'll sign off on
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll sign off on that.
Yeah, so that's a huge part of it, and, it's everyone wants to have their ideas be the ones that are taken, and, I was very vocal at any job I've had. I try to look at things pretty analytically and try to understand why, something is doing well and not take it at face value. I think it's really easy to, see a feature that is getting a response and assume it's like exactly that issue or benefit, and usually it's something else. Animation, at Cryptic, where we're doing MMOs, and it's all about power balance and feeling that the 1,000 damage is accurate to what you're doing and stuff. We found really fast that animation could tweak something a little bit, and it would make you feel way stronger or way weaker. And so we would, it just opened my eyes to the idea that it's all a gray line, and so you have to kind of look a little deeper before reacting to feedback sometimes.
Yeah, I don't
But
know
yeah,
if you played the Lords of Shadow, the first Castlevania Lords of Shadow game, but
I've never played it. Yeah.
there's a little detail that I don't know what it was from the animation front that I just loved. And
Mhm.
when you were swinging your whip, it was the first time in a game where I was using a whip where it felt that it had real weight to it. Like you have this
Oh,
lofty
sure.
chain, and when you would hit
Yeah, yeah,
the animation and the screen itself would back out a little bit, so you felt that impact of the whip slamming the ground. And from an animation
yeah, yeah.
standpoint, that detail just really sold me on the whip combat of that game.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome. No, those are subtle, subtle little things, like basically a little camera shake, and I know that animation. I mean, he's got really heavy anticipation, but it's still fast.
mhm.
So you know that it's hard hitting, but it's still really responsive, and that's the dream for any animation
You
in
get
game.
that feedback as a player. You're like, yeah, I'm strong.
Yeah,
That's heavy. I'm hitting them hard, which is
yeah,
like
yep,
when you're looking at it, it's sometimes hard to kind of convey that. Um,
yeah, exactly.
Super chat hype from Mr. Joanna Dark, who has a question for you. What has been the biggest challenge in making Song of Iron unique and stand out from the rest of the games within this genre?
That honestly has been, um, especially describing the game, that has been my greatest struggle. Because if you read any of my writings about it or descriptions, it just sounds like the most generic copycat God of War game or something. And it's hard to say it's not God of War at all. It's actually way more like Inside, because you don't want to use other games to describe yours. I think that's like
It's
poor.
definitely it's reductive, but it's also effective. Like
Yeah,
at least within friends groups, like giving them
yeah,
some
totally.
example that they can point to. But for you don't
Yeah,
want
and
to say this is inside, and then like this isn't
on my
inside.
Steam page, yeah. Yeah, you don't wanna put Steam page. This is Song of Iron, it's a lot like Inside. Um, but yeah, this is a great forum for that, it sounds so much more like God of War than it is, and it is way more like Inside with fighting instead of as much puzzles, in short. Um, but I think, as far as the actually building stuff and trying to stay away from it is I haven't actually tried that much. And in fact, I think it's really good to lean on things that people know and are established and just do them your own way. So I definitely just think about and build, and I'm just literally making it. I don't know how they made their stuff, so mine just naturally is starting to feel different. With the way my environments are built, I really like the naturalistic feeling of it, and I'm trying to make animations and the size of spaces, everything feel really realistic. And so, you feel like it's an actual world that has the true depth. When you get a few like lines of sight that go way out, it's just like, wow, this could be a whole massive game, and all I'm seeing is this little bit. and that is just slowly breathing the life that is becoming Song of Iron into it. It's just that mentality. That's just the way I think when I make games, and so I hope that that pulls it far enough away. I don't look to reference other games too much, other than just what I've played like way back. But I reference all sorts of stuff. Journey, Shadow of the Colossus, I reference in my mind all the time about it, which totally different, games in a lot of ways. A lot of the Zeldas, just tiny little bits of stuff from all over. So
Yeah, that's one thing. Like if you guys are watching along here, when you're looking at the footage that's on the screen here, there is this really cool sense of depth in the environments where not a lot of 2D side-scrolling games do that very well. They'll have like they'll have the foreground, and then they'll have a very bright, obvious background. And one thing I like about this presentation is that you can tell here like 4 or 5 layers. So it makes it feel like this world is expansive and huge, even though you're only seeing this 2D plane.
yeah, totally. And I'm actually, I mean, the whole world is just built out. If I pull the camera out, I think I've shown him a few tweets, just like a way top down view. And you could, if it wasn't restrained to the 2D plane, you could just walk off and going exploring, and it gives it. It's a little heavy graphically, but not that much. I mean, it's still pretty simple, and yeah, it just gives it such a grounding in reality that I love in games. So
Yeah, no, it goes a long way because I mean, with some games, if you really pay attention, you can tell it's just a static background. Like even though it might
yeah.
look really good, like if you really focus on it, sometimes you can tell. And like as a
Mhm.
player, in some instances, that can take you out of like the experience of being sucked into this world when you know it's like, oh, this is just an image. This is just a flat image on a background.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so you mentioned Inside as kind of
Mhm.
like something and that's kind of how I've been describing this game too. It's like it's a puzzle platformer with a lot more combat than you've probably
With
seen
combat.
before.
Yeah,
Are there any
yeah.
games in particular from this genre that inspired you? Like, did you ever play Heart of Darkness or like Abe's Odyssey? Any of those like kind of old school, like PS1 era, like the
Sure, sure. Abe's Odyssey, I remember playing forever ago. So long ago that I barely remember it. But yeah, I definitely played it, and just even then, I was like, "This game's really weird." And I was like 10 or whatever.
Oh yeah, it's yeah, yep.
I
Just
think
what is
it's
going
a really
on?
bizarre game. Um, yeah, I mean, as far as the old school games go, it's hard. Honestly, Mega Man X, which seems again like a very weird comparison, is sort of one of my first games that I remember loving. Um, and I took a lot from that in here, and just like simplicity of levels and gear and stuff like that. That's all very Mega Man X inspired. And Ghouls and Goblins is just more, in line with the fantasy-ish element. I remember that game and never getting past like the third level because it was so hard. But
That's one
right,
of
like
those
the
games
water.
that's
How do
like,
you get past the water? I don't know.
and it's one of those games that's super mean because once you get to the end, they just make you do it all again.
Oh yeah,
Like you
good.
beat
No,
the
I'm
you beat the
glad.
final boss, and then they're like, "Uh oh, sorry, princess is taken." They throw you back to the first level, and you have to replay it through the entire game again to beat it. And I'm
Yeah,
like, "This
fun.
is
Oh
stupid."
jeez. Yeah, but those games, like as far as side scrollers, were games I think about a lot. Well, Ghouls and Goblins is almost more silly to think about, I think, but it has some of the elements. But Mega Man X, I love. Just in Song of Iron, the gear you find is once you get a helmet, that's the helmet you got, and that's very Mega Man X, right? It's like you got the special helmet, and that you're set. And that game was fairly short. This game's not super long, so it's about a very nice story. I don't make you worry about you know getting the perfect build. I just give you the good one, and you go from there.
Well, Mega Man X
Uh,
is one of my all-time favorite games, so that's exciting to
it's
hear.
so good. Yeah, it's
Um,
so good.
so with that being said, are these upgrades tied to like boss unlocks? Like, are you beating a boss to get that? Is that something you can talk about, or?
Yeah, no, I can talk about it. I mean, so there are a few bosses in the game and just sort of large obstacles in your way. But you're trying to get to the home of the gods. You have a thing. You're trying to make a wish with it, basically, and you have to take it there to do that. And along the way, as you go through the world, you're running through ruins and relics and stuff, and you'll find them hidden deep inside of these really ancient areas. And they're sort of like godly equipment that had been given to really good warriors and stuff. That's barely in the game. You just find a chest for the most part, and it's
Okay.
like, okay, here you go, and now you've got this, and now you can do some really cool stuff. But that's the backstory built in. It's just this world is like world built on world built on world, um, and yeah, you're just kind of finding the best of it, and then you don't have to go through an inventory. You just get it. It's
Just
good.
get it and you just have it. Nice. I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So, because I've noticed with everything you've shown so far, there's no HUD, and I assume that's intentional. The entire game has no
Yeah,
HUD. Okay.
yeah. I'm trying to keep that stuff as simple as possible. Right now, you technically have a little life bar kind of way down in the corner. It's as subtle as I can go, and it'll hopefully like fade away when you don't need to see it. Stuff like that. There's a few places where that the rule is broken, I guess.
Okay.
Um,
When it serves a
but
gameplay purpose, like you need
yeah,
it to
it's like
understand
how
what's
do
going
yeah.
on.
Yeah, just like, okay, here's a little help here, a few things, and I'm just doing everything I can to keep it as simple as possible, both for development, but also because, yeah, if every screenshot you take basically has no HUD, then I'm super
Then you
happy.
don't have to do a photo mode, right? That's
Yeah, right. That too. Here you go.
the
Just take
Sea
a
of Thieves
screenshot.
approach. Everyone
Yeah,
harasses Rare to put in a photo mode, and they're like, "There's no HUD. It's you got a
there's
photo
no
mode."
HUD.
It's
Just take it. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's just about it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
awesome. So with Song of Iron being a indie game, a solo project, um, what are coming from a development background? What are some games that you would consider, I guess, kind of perfect from a design standpoint? Not necessarily ones that inspired Song of Iron, but games that you as a developer find that have perfect design or near perfect design.
The big questions.
Yeah, we're moving
Yeah,
on to
that's
the
a tough
big
one.
stuff now.
Think, yeah, man, that's tough. It's going to be some of the same games. I think Journey is one of the best made games that we've maybe ever seen. Um, because it just does things differently, and it always just sort of works, and it feels really good to play. Um, every element of it just feels good. It's avoided the it's not even an issue. Avoided violence, which is fine. I have tons of violence in my game, but it just you don't even think about it. You have to run away from monsters a few times, but and then the companion system that they have where you kind of can come across another person playing, and there's no way to talk to them except for the little bleeps, and that just creates it creates an atmosphere that I don't think we've ever seen before, and haven't seen since that game was made that I'm aware of, and I think that was just an astounding game. I think League of Legends, which is sort of a weird one, is like a really well designed game. I actually think it's getting worse, but I still think it's just a very good sport game. Um, if you want that sort of team aesthetic and a game that you can just get infinitely better at. Rocket League is almost similar to that, where it's like it's an athletic game
Hmm.
in a way, right? I really appreciate those for that sort of stuff. Um,
That like
I thought
easy to
Shadow of the Colossus. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that easy to pick up and play, but hard to master kind of formula that
Yeah,
some
exactly.
games do really
Yeah,
well.
and then maybe the best of those is maybe Smash Brothers. I've
Oh yeah.
always just loved Smash Brothers. I think I'm not a big fighting game person. I actually almost don't like them at all in some ways, but Smash is amazing. It's just so perfectly designed in the you can be really bad and just smash the C button or whatever, and do not bad
And
in a
feel
team
good
fight.
and
It's
feel and still
pure
have a good time.
chaos. Yeah, and feel good and all that, or you can, be doing ridiculously crazy stuff. Um, and it's awesome. And I think part of it with Smash, like what made it feel better than other fighting games to me was that it felt athletic. Like the stuff you could do was way beyond what I assumed that they intended, and I love that. And it sort of has never stopped expanding, even if Nintendo hates people playing their game a lot, and like tries to stop them all the time, which is like a weird thing. But yeah, Smash Brothers is incredible.
Yeah, Smash Brothers Ultimate, I think, is kind of sealed my top spot as like the best fighting game that's been made. Like incredible, and like it's like the same form. It's like League of Legends, where you have everyone controls the same in theory. Like the buttons that you press for every single character are the same, but what those do is kind of up to that specific character. And so I really love that once you learn how the game works on a fundamental level, you can translate that to any character that you pick. Like any stage, everything feels and plays differently. But if you understand those fundamentals, then it's easy to play any character.
Yeah.
Whereas like Mortal Kombat in particular, you have to memorize like 45 button combos for that specific character and then relearn the 45 button inputs on another character. And there's just like this, it's too much of an investment for the average person, I feel like.
Yeah, it's tough. And it's so combo based that, it's so hard to get past hit A to kick, hit B to punch, or whatever it is in those games compared to Smash, which every button kind of does their thing. And so you can learn them super fast. Just hit all the buttons and you'll see everything that they have to offer. Pretty much.
You'll see the full kit. Another super chat from Mr. Joanna Dark, holding down the super chat hype. Is the game narrative driven, or is it more environmentally story driven, leaving it up to the player to make their own stories and understanding?
It is. There is a narrative going on. There is a main storyline that you're following. There is very little bit of dialogue or like true storytelling as we're used to. Go to a place, they tell you what's happening, and then you stand there silently, and then they tell you some more about what's happening. There's just a few things. It's like, here's the main problem, go, and then the environment itself should tell you a huge portion of the story just by going through it and facing obstacles and so on. And then there's just a few little pieces along the way just to remind you of what's happening or to egg you on or whatever it might be. But it's sort of like the UI. It's as minimum as I can and as much. There's a really heavy story, but I'm trying to not just like read you a novel as you go through the book or the game, basically. Just
doing the storybook thing with the narrator, and then our hero entered the dark cave.
Like, I want as far from that as possible. It's just sort of like, you see, if people who play the demo, you basically like came across the burning little village and there was a person on the ground. I didn't need to say anything. You just sort of, everyone that I saw play it seemed to understand, correctly identified this person on the ground. And then they're like, yep, well, this is how we do it. It's like, you remember the first John Wick trailer where it's like, oh, they killed the dog. Like, we're all on John's side. Like, let's go. I don't care what happens. They killed the dog. And so there's a little bit of that in there. And, but I hope that people try not to give anything away. I hope people enjoy it.
Just try, yeah. So nice and safe. is it safe to say that that's where some of the Inside kind of comparisons come from, where Inside pretty much has no direct narration? All of the storytelling is context based.
Yeah, that's definitely a big part of it.
Okay, cool.
It was one of those like, they did it and they did it so well. And to me, playing it worked so well. Like, I totally understood what was going on. I was like, let's try that in another genre. And that's sort of where things got kicked off. Yeah.
Cool. Mr. Joanna Dark also wants to know if we'll be able to ride a wolf or a bear. Any creature riding.
I'm sorry, there are no mounts at this time.
No mounts at this time. Sorry, Mr. Joanna Dark.
Simplicity, not this game.
So a big kind of focus for me with this show is getting developers on here to talk about what they're working on, and also to kind of have a human element to game design, and letting people know that there are people that make games, and it's not some machine algorithm that's cranking out these games. As much as I don't know, some people on Twitter feel like that's how games should be made. But what are your thoughts on armchair Twitter developers? People who have never spent a second working on a game, but feel like they understand how long a game should be made and what features should be in a game. To your point earlier, you said you laid out a roadmap of what you think you can realistically do. Did you give yourself a time frame? Like, what was the fun for you as someone who understands game development? When you were starting Song of Iron, what did you lay out? What did you think was realistic, and what time frame realistically did you give yourself to achieve that?
I think at the time I was thinking about a year, but I didn't know um, how big or where it would be a few months after that. Honestly, when I kind of really started, and from there, I kind of gave myself about a year and a half, which ended up being 2 years if you include, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But see where to even start with that. Yeah, it's tough. It's the hardest thing to do is to guess how long something's going to take for game development. There's random games will take like 8 years to come, but they've been kind of being worked on or maybe not worked on the whole time. So it's always tough. See, try to start from the beginning of that. The armchair critic or like game developer, right? I It's good and bad. I think we always want to hear feedback because there's no other way for us to do a better version of it the next time or to fix the version that we have. So we have to know. We have to, and you have to tell us, right? I think the greatest issue comes from people when when they start taking it too far, when they start kind of like deciding to be against the thing as a whole, and that's when like stuff gets really nasty for really no reason. And um, that's when you see all the like the death threats and all the weird stuff and
Yeah, the
people.
really scary, extreme kind of hate.
Yeah, and or just general constant harassment, and people end up like logging off of Twitter forever, and all this sort of stuff. And it's just not productive for games
No.
when it goes that far. And if I don't, I assume most people who are that bad are they don't care, and they're just really trolly, and they like I got this person to
Yeah,
log off.
I did that. I affected them.
It's really unfortunate because we need to hear the criticism so that we can get better. But it's so much easier to listen to the criticism when it's delivered like a person to a person
Yeah.
talking. Being an animator, all we do all day is animate, and then we look at each other's stuff and we tell each other what we need to do to fix it. So that is a thing that is bred into the way I think. I love listening. For the demo, I got tons of feedback. I had this huge, massive list. I was asking follow up questions to people who were giving me feedback and like trying to understand what happened and stuff. And that is super valuable to me. Even bigger stuff. I mean, I think we can still be mad at companies and be upset. I mean, like the easy force to beat right now is Cyberpunk, but
Oh
there's a
yeah.
ton
Yeah.
that are like it, and it's like they clearly made a massive mistake, right? But the people who made a massive mistake, and he just came out, I think, this week and apologized, was like this, like the directors of that studio. They're the
Exactly.
ones who
One of
made
the
it.
heads of CDPR came out and basically
Yeah,
put out an official
they
statement.
I guarantee you, I don't know anything about the development. I guarantee you it was very upper crust management that made them launch it in that state. I promise you that the developers were screaming that they got
No.
stuck. I mean, I seriously, I promise you they were, and they were just like, this is such a mistake. Like, you've never given me enough time to make this. So they're rushing probably for 2 years. They probably were given a quarter of the time needed for any single task for a long time.
Mhm.
And so what they ended up doing is not being able to do it the best way and then needing to go back and fix it. You end up spending 3 times as much time as you want because of this unnecessary rush. And that's always a management. Um, and yeah, I've worked in that stuff too, and I've done the same thing. It's like just go away for a few more weeks. Like, let me finish this, or else this is gonna be a nightmare for a year as we try to fix all the shortcuts that we've had to take. But yeah, it's a tough one. I think Mass Effect. I always remember that one too. Is like they promised the thing that they then didn't deliver, and so people were naturally upset about it. Right? It didn't have to go so far. People went after, like, you don't go after the writers because I guarantee you the writers know what's happening,
Hmm.
and they probably have a way better ending written in a draft somewhere. But they're like, we don't have time to do this because we did all this stuff, so we just have to do.
We're gonna go with the ending that's easiest
Col-
to produce.
we're gonna color tint the ending to red, blue, and green, or whatever it was. And it's unfortunate because the people that are most upset, honestly, are the people making the game. I guarantee it, because they saw the dream first and they lived the dream and tried to make it a reality for the longest time. I think the hardest thing for us is to like manage expectations so that, you know, with Song of Iron, I show these really little clips, right? And it's easy to imagine someone assuming something the game is something else, right? A 15-hour epic that does all these things that it doesn't, because all I've shown is these little things. But I'm trying to be really open about the development, so I'm showing you exactly what the game is as much as I can. And so yeah, I don't know. It's a crazy battle, and the Twitterverse can make it hard because it's so easy to misquote and retweet bad information and stuff like that. But I generally stay out of that stuff as much as I can.
Yeah, it's
So it
for
doesn't.
your own
So
mental
I
health.
never
I'm
get.
sure it's for the best.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to. There's this fear. So as a developer, there's definitely a fear that I'll say something or I'll show something and it will. People won't like it, or it'll turn some group against me, or something, or whatever. So it's a scary thing, but I don't know. My community that follows Song of Iron and follows my Twitter and stuff are just phenomenal. They're so great. They're really supportive. They're always commenting and liking and stuff and asking questions. And I try to respond to any questions about the game, or like people give me ideas all the time, and some of them are really great. And I just go out and I will think about that. That sounds awesome. And so I hope just being open and available helps with that for some as much as
Yeah, I
possible.
mean, I feel like that goes a long way in this day and age, having like obviously it's a lot of work for you to kind of manage the game itself and all those interactions. But at the same time, you have this direct connection with the people who are legitimately most excited about this game, and they know the person behind it and they know the intentions of the person behind it. Whereas with a lot of larger scale projects, you know the company, but for the most
Yeah,
part, you outside of like a figurehead, you don't really know most of the people behind the scenes working on it. So,
yeah,
which sucks because I know there's a lot of people passionate, like with like your point of CDPR. Like I'm sure the people who spent years on that game were really upset when that launched, that they had to
yeah,
launch the game in the way that it was launched. I'm sure no one
yeah,
wanted to do that, and I'm
totally.
sure it sucks seeing just so much negative press. Like even like CNN and like sites that don't cover games generally speaking are talking
Yeah,
about
it's such a big deal, right?
yeah, so I'm sure for them it totally sucks.
Oh,
So
it's a bummer. I guarantee you morale over there is really low, and it's sad because I mean this group made Witcher 3, which was like the best game for a long time, for years. It's like that
mhm.
game was phenomenal. It's the same people with the same passion, the same abilities, and you just Also, the other thing is I bet those tools are the same tools that they made Witcher 3 with, which are probably the same tools that they made Witcher 2 with. And so they're like, we need better tools
When
if
you
you want
better
us to make this game
we
look like this. And they're like, no, 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 it worked for Witcher 3. It's like, yeah, but it hurt really bad when we did that. And yeah, it's a cycle. And I've only been in a few studios, and it's always been the same.
like we have a better kid at home already. Just the
Yeah, but it's like, well, Witcher 3 was so good, so you should be fine. It's
yeah,
like, yeah, but
but it's
4K and 60 and
times have changed. Like expectations were a lot
yeah,
lower for a launch. Like Witcher 3 was
yeah.
I don't even think it was 1080. I don't even think it was 1080 30
I don't
when it
remember.
launched.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
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 so expectations have changed quite a bit. But couple new
yeah.
folks
But
in the chat. Indie Gamer Pong Soul, thanks for hanging out. Thanks
hey,
for
what's up,
tuning
indie
in.
gamer? What's up, Pong?
Um, yeah, so it's yeah, it's unfortunate. Like that for me,
Yeah,
it's like I haven't made a game, but I've talked to a lot of developers, so I know fundamentally that from you don't go into making games unless you love it because it's a lot of work,
yeah,
long
yeah,
hours. Generally speaking, it can be brutal. I mean, I'm glad to see there's been a shift with a lot of these bigger companies in recent years to at least kind of address that because
yeah.
I've talked to some folks who've had some pretty awful experiences that have like ruined their aspirations of making games. Like their experiences have been
Yeah.
that negative where they're like, I went into this industry with different expectations. I was in this industry and now I don't want anything to do with this industry. And seeing
Yeah.
stories like that is
You know,
like
mhm.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's too bad for sure. Yeah, it can be brutal, and I think it's one of those things where the expectation going into making games is way different than the reality, and
Hmm.
you don't really know it until you're there. If you find someone online who you can talk to who's in games and ask a bunch of questions, like that will give you more realistic expectations and set you up for better success, 'cause then you're not coming in assuming that a bunch of your ideas are suddenly going to get put into a game that you're joining, as an amateur or whatever. um, that's not necessarily how it works, but you're just going to make some shoes for a while, is what you're going
Yeah,
to
yeah,
really do,
you're gonna make
or
some really nice
whatever.
shoes that.
You make some really nice shoes for a bit, and do some grunt work, which is clicking a lot of buttons over and over again to put this other guy's shoes in the game. um, but it happens, and you just have to learn from it. And the more you understand games themselves and can break them down better than, like, I like this game, let's make that game. The more you'll be able to have conversations with people, and the faster you'll get into a position where you're designing a character or helping design this or that or whatever. So, I don't know. We could go into a whole, like,
A
get
whole,
into the
yeah.
industry thing, but
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure some people will be into it, but maybe not everyone. But
yeah, no, we don't.
we do have some people though asking about your role in at 343 Industries. I know at the beginning we talked, you worked on Halo 5 and a little bit of Halo Infinite. Was that animation capacity?
Yeah, I was an animator for both of it. Yeah, I see. Rake is asking me about leaving friends. Yeah, that honestly, leaving my friends is the hardest part. Some of my best friends I was working with at 343. It was dream scenario when it comes to game development. To all get into the studio or be there at the same time, and that honestly held me there longer because of that. I maybe would have left earlier. It's but like the work from home stuff kind of makes it easier because I'm just chatting with them on Discord instead of on Teams now.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of them literally I can see his house like over my computer monitor through the window, and so luckily I'm in a situation where we're all still really close and can continue to be really close. Um, but yeah, so I was an animator. Sorry, I tangented. I did a lot of most of the Warden animation, like the combat animation from Five. I did most of his assassinations and sword swipes and stuff like that. I did a lot of that stuff, and the big crazy summoning thing. That was a fun one. I did a bunch of the just Spartan on Spartan assassinations. If people are familiar with that, like the backbreaker, and I forget what some of them were called in the end, but I did the backbreaker. That was mine, and then I did 4 or 5 of them, I think. Those were really fun. Those are like the thing that everybody likes. Like they make us wait till the very end of the project, and then like, okay, a month, all animators make assassinations, and then we just go nuts and
Yes.
try. Like, okay, now we have to make another one, but have it be different from all the other ones before it, and all that sort of stuff. And but those are super fun. And then my wife gets questions like, "Your husband's like very violent, huh?" And it's like, no, 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 no. It's
No,
just animating.
just it's a healthy outlet.
Yeah, yeah, better here than anywhere else. Yeah. But yeah, and then for Infinite, which I can't say much about, but I was an animator for that also, and eventually became the lead for the character stuff for the time I was that, and then yeah, I left just recently. December 31st was my last day.
New Year's resolution. I'm out. Goodbye.
Yeah,
Good
yeah,
luck.
yep, the year of Song of Iron. It really is. So
So with that being
full
said, we've
commit.
we've seen some trailers that have said spring 2021 for Song of Iron. Is that still your goal right now?
Think it it'll be late spring, early summer.
Okay.
I'm kind like I just I want to say a window, but even that it could be misleading because I could push it 2 more months just to make sure
Just to
everything's
make sure
good,
it's
and
all
then
dialed in. Yeah.
yeah. But I'm kind of saying mid 2021 at this point. I think move like on pace, if not ahead of pace. but doing it for the first time fully and then doing it myself, there's too many possibilities of just like there goes a month. A month is now gone.
Yeah, something
You know,
happens and you're there's no one to turn to if, you get
yeah,
sick or whatever the
I
case
I
may
get
be.
sick or yeah, or my computer breaks and it takes a week to get here. So like
There's a
there
week.
goes a week
There's a week.
because
It's
no one else is working on it. Who knows? Or porting it to a thing or fixing this bug all of a sudden is a big deal. There's those sorts of things too. So
cool.
it's coming this year. Hopefully, not too much longer to wait, but summer-ish now is sort of the more likely
Cool.
spot.
I mean, like we talked about earlier, once it's out there, that's it. Like once it's out in the
Yep.
public, like it's out. There's no taking it, but no take backsies at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. You can only and updating. There's of course plans to update, bug fix, all that sort of stuff for a decent amount of time after because it's a shorter single player game. I don't expect like the need to do a ton of updating. I hope that it's in a state that doesn't need that other than the real simple stuff, and then hopefully then I can expand on languages and sort of reach of the game for a little bit and then move on to um, more stuff.
Move on to more stuff. Song of Iron 2 confirmed. No.
More Song of Iron. Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, the dream would be to continue. I think the world has a ton of really cool stuff, and then when everybody plays it, they'll understand that there's plenty more to talk about. And so, yeah, it'd be great for it to do well enough to do more. Sure.
so would you if this did well enough, I know one of your prereqs for Song of Iron 1 was no multiplayer. Would you ever consider a multiplayer approach to this universe, or do you envision this as something that only works as a single player thing?
I totally think it's worth investigating. There's just imagining just playing it myself as I work on it and people play the demo, like throwing that axe at your friend instead of just an AI just seems like it would probably be really fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I absolutely think it's worth investigating. Really early on in the project, I actually was looking at Nidhogg a lot. If you know
Oh,
that,
Nidhogg is such a
yeah, I
great
mean,
co-op game, or not
yeah,
co-op,
and
PvP, I guess.
PvP, yeah, the first their first one, the 6 pixel high figures or whatever, that was so great. And honestly, like some of the throwing axes was straight like that works so well in Nidhogg. I'm doing it in mine, and it's just one hit kill. Just do it. It's awesome, and that's totally it's great. So I could totally see that happening. Yeah,
Cool. No, that's awesome.
yeah.
So with that being said, have you what is the complexity of adding online multiplayer? Because a lot of people online make it sound maybe easier than it really is when it comes to having actual
It's
online multiplayer.
Yeah, it's a mix. Like in general, it's very difficult. You basically have to triple the amount of code you're doing, if not just double it. I mean, so right now I just say throw axe. The axe goes out. It's all locally computed, right? But if it was multiplayer, I have to tell the server that I'm throwing an axe, ask the server that I can throw an axe, throw the axe. The server and the player track it. Whatever it does, they check with each other if it works. All the while, servers sending it to the other person, going like, "Hey, just so you know, the axe is here now. Okay, now it's here. Now it's here." Um, and then going like, "Oh, it hit you. Is that where you were?" And it's like, "Yes." And then that is what lag is this thing going, taking all these paths, and then you slow the internet down and it gets really bad.
Mhm.
And so I'm not in any way a network person or, I'm not an engineer at all. And so this has all been done in blueprints and it's simple for that. And yeah, so on that, it just would be tough.
So that
Very
might
tough.
not be a one man kind of endeavor.
Yeah, I don't know. The dream would be to expand a little bit. I've learned a lot about it, just being in the tools and stuff, but I just like stay away for now.
Just
Like I don't
I need
want to
to
deal with
let me
you
just
right now.
focus on this. Let's get the
Yeah.
fundamentals down. Let's
But it could be really cool. Especially, it would really depend. Like co-op would be much easier than say competitive in any way because goofy stuff happens. It's all for the for the benefit of the team,
Hmm.
and it's all, as long as it's working, then it's fine. And then yeah, competitive, it gets very, very difficult because everybody cares that I hit you first.
Exactly. I
And
pushed
it's
the button.
true.
I pushed the
Yeah,
button.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And it that gets really complicated. I know, like, I think it's even public, like early Halos, like assassination or clanging, melee to melee head on. They did some tricky stuff. It wasn't just who got there first. There was a little bit of what feels best, and that's like a whole other bit of who's lagging, where are they, what angle were they coming from, and then it goes, yes, that person won.
That
So
person, yeah. Weird
yeah, it
rock,
gets it
paper,
can get
scissors net
complicated. Yeah,
algorithm that goes into it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's like old school Halo. I don't know if that's on it anymore.
On a current, okay.
Yeah.
Another super chat from Mr. Joanna Dark, just crushing it
Yes.
today. With programs like ID at Xbox and Game Pass, do you see these services as positive for indie developers like yourself? Um, yeah, I've seen a lot of people actually asking about Game Pass. What are your
Yeah.
takes on it? And I don't know. Again, I don't know if you can say or not. People were asking if this is coming to Game Pass, but
Gotcha. Yeah. Right now, it is not coming to Game Pass. I would love that. I think, but that's a Microsoft. I don't just say I want to be in Game Pass. They've got a roster basically, and then they're adding to their own roster. I think it works really well. I don't know, not having any deals with them yet or any conversation about it really. I don't know the true benefit to the developer. I assume it's good. I mean, that's already I've seen, just being part of ID at Xbox, just so much more attention that just slowly gets flooded through their machine. Just every time I'm in an article, I see a spike with all of my stuff, and so Game Pass is just going to be an even bigger thing because it just literally allows so many people to access the game and stuff, which is awesome. The ID at Xbox program, I'm 100% would recommend, would do again. We'll see how it finishes. I expect the trajectory to stay, on course, but it is the it is the best version of a publisher I could possibly imagine. They just want the game to exist, and they just want, and you go, and please bring it to our platform. And that's why Steam is still available to me. And then the exclusivity is just consoles. It's just, here's some resources. Feel free to talk about it however you want. You can still put it on PC. It's like, you can do this, you can do that. We have no say whatsoever creatively. Please tell us if you're going to make another one, because then we'll talk again. And I could, it's amazing. That's the exact opposite of the horror stories of an indie developer getting a publisher that then takes creative freedom, takes all their money, blah blah blah, which happens a lot.
yeah, it's like people who have a good idea and they're like, oh well, if I sign with a publisher, I'll have a better chance of success or like
Yeah.
my game doing well. Not really
Mhm.
understanding what they're losing by
What?
doing that.
Yeah, yeah. All you need, if you're interested in that at all, is watch any movie about the music industry, like screwing over the artists. It's the exact same thing. It is the exact same thing.
Signing your life away for exposure. Based,
Yep. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, you basically for famed exposure. Yeah. They take all the money and stuff. I
Uh-huh.
mean, not every. I'm sure
I'm
some indies are really, publishers are good in general. They obviously, tons of great indies come from them, and wouldn't exist without that funding and support and stuff. It's just, for me, it doesn't totally make sense, and it's just something you have to be careful with, like with any business when you're getting into it. Yeah, but obviously, we wouldn't be here without them in a lot of ways, because a lot of stuff doesn't exist without money and so on.
yeah, that's the reality. Is like
Yeah,
it's expensive to release a game, like,
yeah,
and not
yeah,
everyone
and
has that just mountain of cash that they can throw
yeah,
out to get this game out. So
y- yeah, and as a solo indie person, it's easy for me to forget that indie doesn't mean one person. Indie can mean 30 people, right? And it's just that they're working small, like unsupported. And so that does take, like, I can work very shoestring. It's much harder to have 30 people work shoestring on a shoestring budget, right? So money is important. It
So
makes the world go
it does. It really does.
round.
So have you spent a decent amount of time with the dev kits for Xbox consoles at this point then?
A bit. So
Okay.
like getting the demo going was sort of my first real push to understand the system and go through it. Honestly, it's not like the interaction that I have with it. It took me a while to just kind of wade through all the things that seem simple once you've figured them out, but are extremely impossible until then. So there's always a couple of those. I mean, it hurts when I'm an engineer and it's like, what does this error mean? You start Googling it and then it's all proprietary. So Google literally
Google
can't
has no
tell you.
answers to you. You're just like,
Yeah.
ah.
Yeah. And yeah, Justin marketing too is a tough one. Uh, yeah. But once I kind of got through that initial week of just like slamming your head against the learning wall, it's been really great. So
So your
yeah.
development initially was mostly PC focused. Um,
Yeah.
with what you've seen of the dev kits so far, are you setting drastically different targets between your Steam release and say the Xbox Series X release? Or what's your approach with the console version versus the PC version?
Gotcha. Yeah, the PC version is just pretty like freeform, kind of like normal. You know, you'll be able to turn it way down or way up or
Mhm.
whatever. I expect the Series X to be pretty similar to PC. At this point, I don't think I'm doing anything so crazy that like a monster PC will smash a Series X or something. Um, the harder one is the one, and especially the original one.
Oh
It's sort of
yes,
like,
yeah.
which of course is the bottleneck. It's going to be the lowest spec thing, and like low end PCs right in that realm. But even then, that's like a 15-year-old PC
That's a yeah,
almost, right?
pretty low end
Um,
PC at that point. But
PC, but it's going to happen. And so that's the one that's the most concerning. But I think like with the demo, I was able to do I think 720 or maybe a little bit. I think I had some weird resolution like eight something, 810 or something.
816 or yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I literally was like, am I hitting 30
Okay,
frames?
let
Like, I
me
could
just
go a
I
little
would tweak
wider.
tweak
Yeah,
this until yeah, okay.
yeah, something like that. I had some weird things set up, but that's sort of the actual concern is the Xbox One. But the demo I think ran decent on it. It ran at 30, an okay resolution. There was a few things that, like I think the torch like flickered on and off every once in a while, and the water wasn't with like basically got blacked out. But that was just a time. I didn't have enough time to kind of sort through all that stuff. It was sort of the demo had to go through certification, which
Mm.
is like was a month ahead of
You're
the
just like,
whole
oh
thing
no, oh
going
no.
out. And it's like, okay, well, I have to keep making the game too. I couldn't totally lose all my time to it. But yeah, I'm not too worried about performance. And then I think the Series X and hopefully the Series S will both be able to run at 60. I think the X will be able to do 4K,
Cool. Right.
or really close to it. Um, but yeah, the Series X is awesome. It's a beast. So the game's gonna look great on it. I'm really excited about that.
So can you give us a little insight into what it's like publishing on Xbox with all these different basically console versions? Because I know that's been a concern for some people, is that working on, like you said, with the base Xbox One, you have the Xbox One, you have the Xbox One X, you have the Xbox Series S, and you have the Xbox Series X. You're basically having to do a different version for each of those, correct?
Yeah, kind of. So to be considered, what's the phrase like, uh, made for X Series X? I don't remember
Series
what
X and
the
S enhanced.
enhance. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. So you have to have a specific build made for them for that. That has all the enhancements and stuff compared to just one that works across all of them.
All
But
versions.
even within the one, I can see which console is running, and then I can just instantly change the settings for it. So
Oh, okay, cool.
like with the demo, it was one build, and I just looked at what was being played, and I just set settings for each one of those.
Okay, so it wasn't ultimately that much extra work necessarily in your case.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So the demo wasn't enhanced, but it was running far beyond what the one was doing.
Mr. Joanna Dark says he wants to see 4K 120 FPS and 6K 60 FPS.
Oh man.
But he's got some
6K,
demands for you there. He's 6K. He wants to see that super sampled 6K.
That would be crazy. I will not limit you from going super high. If you're whatever Unreal's engine will for you to do, I will try to let you do. But yeah, I think the game, because it's not a competitive game and it's more of a looker, if it hits 60 at around 4K, the game's gonna look really good. I'm not crazy technical because I'm an animator, I'm an artist, so I'm doing my best to like manage all that stuff. The best I can give you, like the most honest like answer, is that I will make it look as good as I can and run as good as I possibly can.
I think that's fair and safe.
Yeah. I think if you guys try to get me on real deep stuff, you'll destroy me because I'll totally fall apart. People ask me about like ultra wide too. It's like I don't think that's going to be possible. Which I know is a huge staple with high-end PCs, but to see the side scroller at like all this, you'll see through walls and it'll totally break. So
yeah, that is an interesting point that I didn't really think about with 2D games in particular. Is for ultra wide, you would have to basically expand the field of view and what's being rendered and what's being shown for all these scenes.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. So I'm just going to go ahead and say there's probably not support for
that. That's safe. It's, I don't know. I guess I'm just old school. I don't really even like using ultra wide. I have some friends who are all about it, and I'm just, I don't know.
It's probably one of those things you got to play for a few hours and like, okay,
then you can,
I understand why you
like
this.
physically turn your head to like look around the scene.
Yeah, you see the final boss in the gamer from the beginning.
ultra wide.
Yeah, ultra wide. But yeah, I think it's gonna run well and look good. That's my plan. I forget a lot. It's just one person. I'm doing everything I can to make it look good. So I promise I will work really hard to do it to make it look good.
So no commitment to 4K 120 FPS then? Is that?
I don't know about 120. 60 easy. I think. Cool. I'm pretty comfortable with 60. Yeah. So that should be
fun. Awesome. Yeah. I'm catching them on chat here to make sure I didn't miss any burning questions here.
Indie Gamers all over the chat.
Yeah, Indie Gamers.
Indie Gamers, awesome. He's a great guy. He's got his own channel. It's really good. That's great.
Show Indie Gamers some love out there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So from here, I'm going to open up the chat. If you guys have any additional questions for Joe, drop those in there about Song of Iron. And then I guess we'll kind of transition into some of the general topics for the week. If you want to hang out and discuss stuff like the Indiana Jones reveal or the Forza Horizon Hot Wheels DLC. But yeah, any other questions about Song of Iron, drop those now in the chat. And then we'll talk a little bit about the Indiana Jones reveal and exclusivity. And where do you stand with exclusivity in terms of, there's this contingent of people who, when the Indiana Jones game was released, my Twitter feed in particular was dominated by the conversation of exclusivity. Will this be an Xbox exclusive? More than it was like, hey, Todd Howard is making a new Indiana Jones game. So there was more conversations about exclusivity, I feel, than there was about the actual game itself.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, like, exclusives are good and bad because an exclusive means that less people have an opportunity to play a game, but it's good for other things because it raises the awareness of a side or something, right? So I can go either way. I'm part of an exclusive, and it's beneficial to me because it simply wouldn't exist on consoles otherwise. So it's an easy answer for me. The debate about like all the Bethesda stuff, being like, will it be or won't it be? Like, I mean, Microsoft spent what $10 billion on them. Like,
it's an obscene amount of money. Like,
Yeah, I mean, they spent more than Star Wars cost Disney, right? I
Because
think was,
what they
like, one of
spent the
the
amount of like
hilarious things.
Star Wars and Marvel combined, they spent more than
Yeah,
that,
I think.
which is
Yeah.
just I can't even wrap my head around that much money.
Yeah, so if you just think like a business person for a little bit, you know it's gonna be exclusive because they wanna push their stuff, right? The one way it wouldn't be is if Sony allowed, uh, Game Pass on PlayStation,
That's been an
which
interesting
sounds
debate. Like Xbox,
crazy,
yeah,
but
is Xbox going to force Sony to be like, hey, if you want your players to not buy an Xbox, then let us have Game
yeah,
Pass on.
if you look at the business model at all, which is just giving access to more people for games from Xbox, Microsoft, which is Microsoft's business model right now, is it's just for give access to stuff, and people will, you know, do better. The second Sony says we'll allow Game Pass, Xbox will tweet right back at them, "See you tomorrow."
See
You
you
know what I
too.
mean?
Yeah,
I guarantee you they would. I mean, because it totally makes sense, right? But it's just about if Sony wants to be part of that. But beyond that, yeah, I can't imagine that they wouldn't be exclusive. Any Bethesda game that doesn't already have a contract, it just
that's the
doesn't.
big thing. Is like if there is a contract that's signed already worked, that is not going to be exclusive.
Yeah,
But I think moving
yeah,
forward, Xbox is going to be rushing to get that deal signed so that any
yeah,
major projects going forward aren't. Some people are saying that because this is a licensed title from Lucasfilm's Disney, that means it will be multi-platform. I can't really chime in with any real educated guess there. That makes sense to some degree, but those contracts are so complicated. You look at Marvel
yeah,
Avengers, PS4
yeah,
version got Spider-Man exclusively,
yeah,
which is insane.
right,
Spider-Man is huge. That's a huge thing, and
yeah,
that's not necessarily owned by Sony, whereas these studios now are technically owned by Microsoft. So,
yeah. It's a
yeah,
tough one. I just don't expect, them to give away those exclusives
yeah, they're going to be
after
incentivizing
spending.
Game Pass
Yeah,
aggressively in some way, shape, or form, and whether or not Sony wants to be a part of that, I guess will be TBD. We
yeah,
haven't really seen like Starfield is another big one that people are like, is this going to be an Xbox exclusive? Is this going to come to
yeah. And
PlayStation?
Microsoft could also buy out those contracts. Like
Yeah,
there's a version, and I don't think it would happen, but no games moving forward at all would go to Sony from Bethesda, even ones that currently have contracts. It's I don't think they'll do it
I
because
don't think
it
they'll.
would be terrible press, but
They
they
don't
could,
want to. They
right?
because yeah, they don't want to come off as the bad guys right now. They've been working very very hard over the course of the last like 4 years to kind of correct some of the horribly negative press that the Xbox One launch had. And so,
Don Matrix
yeah, homie Don Matrick, yeah, really did
digging out
some
of that hole
yeah,
for
they're
years.
still
Yeah,
digging out of that whole bit cuz they lost a lot of like consumer trust and again, not to hark on CDPR, but they're going to be in a similar situation as
yeah,
well
they're gonna have
where it's
trouble.
like
Yeah, it's gonna sound biased because I've worked there and then I've now got to deal with them. But I think Xbox and Microsoft in general have chosen an amazing path. And from Satya, CEO of Microsoft, down, he's really implementing that as a concept throughout all of Microsoft, and just a way to work and a way to work with other groups and other people and customers. I think in the next years and going forward, it's just going to get better and better, and it's just going to be very consumer friendly. So I'm excited about it from a gamer's perspective, and I'm excited to be on that side of things,
yeah, like because we
making a game.
other industries, music and film, they've all kind of adapted and to what consumers want. And they've had to kind
Yeah,
of implement these like consumer driven, consumer focused. Like we're no longer paying. I remember paying $19 for CDs back in the day. Like I remember,
yeah,
like
right, yeah.
every week there'd be like a new release that I wanted. And I was spending about $19 a week on one disc, on one compact music
I
disc.
know, right? Oh
And
my
now I'm
god,
paying $15 a month for like 400
tons of
games,
games. Yeah,
which is it's so for me and my wallet and that kind of idea. Like I'm excited that that's where things are going,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
excited that Microsoft is really pushing this consumer focused kind of model.
yeah. And
Um,
that Game Pass extending to buying a console too, right? Which they've talked about. I don't know if that's actually rolled out or not, but just the like, you pay $30, but you have a Series X now, and
yeah,
then
the all
you know,
access thing, which is like
the
a
all
phone.
access stuff, right? I mean, that's just amazing. That's crazy.
Yeah,
But
just think I could, yeah, like previously when PlayStation 3 came out, you had to spend $600 on the console, and then you had to pay $60 for a game.
yeah,
So you were spending $700 at launch to play one game. And
yeah, it's
then
crazy.
fast forward to 2020, and you can get yourself an Xbox Series X and Game Pass with hundreds of games for $30. And you can just,
Yeah, it's
it's
crazy.
it's insane.
You
It's
can mow a couple lawns every week,
yeah.
and then you're good, right?
You're
Like,
good. You got a shiny new console to play with your friends.
yeah, I mean that's great. Um,
So we got a question from
Mr.
Cliff, real quick
Yeah.
here, who, going back to Song of Iron, what makes your game appealing, and can you talk about its appeal and why it's important? So if you had to boil Song of Iron down to why should someone play Song of Iron, what would that look like?
Uh, Appeal wise, I think the clips are appealing because I mean it helps that I'm a 15-year going animator, and so appeal is one of our principles of animation, and so that's a thing that I think about all the time. You know, it's like you want this to look good is maybe like too brutal of a way to say it, but you know, like I good composition, good lighting, good colors, and have actions feel good. And I do that by having them be as realistic as possible and just cheat a little bit so it feels grounded in reality. So you can identify it right away. Like the clip playing, I don't know how much of a delay there is, but every clip you can figure out what's going on super fast. You know, what's the situation? You can read it really quickly. I think that makes the short clips really appealing and easy to digest, and why I think there's good reaction to them for the most part. I think why to play. Um, it's a little tougher because it's more complex, maybe. But I think what I'm trying to deliver is a small package of a really quality and interesting game. I think it will end up feeling a little bit different than people expect because it is such an inside inspired game with a bunch of fighting in it. I want people to feel really immersed in the world. I think a lot of the stuff I've been showing is doing that, which is with a lot of the depth and stuff. But at the same time, for you to feel like a total hulking badass Viking throwing axes and headshotting people and taking down trolls, like it's got those elements, but it's also got this like really grounded, moody environment that you're moving through at a sort of slow pace in a way that I like. You should feel like you're watching some indie Viking movie when you play this game. You know, it's like all fog. It's just a few guys on screen. I think Mez Mikkelsen has like a really great one. It's a real weird movie, but it's like this feels like that thing that I expected this to feel like. And I really hope that that comes across. The other thing, and I can talk maybe more specific about the way the game plays. So it's a very simple combat system in that you there's no inventory, so you don't have to find the special axe with all the extra bonuses or whatever. You just find an axe or a sword or whatever it might be. They all pretty much do the same thing. It looks a little different, but and then that is supposed to encourage you to throw it and don't worry about it because you can grab whatever one that you find off of an enemy and use that one next. You know, fire your arrows and go pluck them out of their chests and keep going. All of the attributes and the progress comes from the gear you have. So, like when you see some of these clips with fire axes and lightning arrows, that's all because of the gear the players got, and the gear is permanent, but all the equipment is not permanent. And so, I compare it to like a Western bar brawl. You know, if you're in a fight, you grab a chair, you break it over someone's back, you have one leg left, you throw it, and then you grab a bottle and you swing the bottle. Like nothing is sacred, and so you don't you. I don't want you to ever like hold something or fight a certain way because you don't want to lose it. Like it doesn't matter. You're going to find another one right away. And so the intent is to let you just like totally let loose in every single fight, and then and then move on to the next one. And so far, and maybe people could talk about it if they played the demo, but I think that it's heading in that direction in a good way.
Just using anything at your disposal at all times to
Yeah. Yeah, pretty
murder these
much. Yeah.
guys and move on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you see a lot. I'm throwing the axe, then I don't have a weapon, and you're down to fists, but you can just kind of instantly pick a weapon up off the ground, or like with the spear, you can javelin it over the top if you want. Um, it's also, and then there's the drop kick, which everybody loves, and it's all contextual. So it's like you kick, if you jump, then you do the double kick. Um, you can block, and then if you're blocking and you do the attack, you do the shield slam, and if you have the spear, you stab over the top of the shield, sort of Spartan style, which is fairly realistic, and it's intuitive. It's like I put my shield up, but if I attack, do I still attack with the spear? Yeah, of course. Which is what you would expect to happen, which a lot of games don't do because it's all combo based. But I'm trying to steer away from that a little bit.
Yeah, so you're not tied to, well, this input leads to this combo, so I'm not able to hold my shield out and do this combo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you do shield, you'll block. If you do shield and combo, something else will happen that should make sense. Is the idea? Yeah.
So what is the key
Somebody, I
to? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
was gonna say, somebody asked about XCloud. I'm gonna try for XCloud. I don't know if it'll be day one, but definitely want to be able to do XCloud.
Have you seen the kit for the touch controls with that with XCloud?
I haven't yet. No,
Okay.
I haven't looked at it. Yeah,
I'm curious to see because
but
I've
it's
seen a ton
interesting.
of games expand recently in Game Pass to have support the touch controls. So I'm wondering how
Yeah,
simple
that
that
would be.
is.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I played Battleground PUBG on a phone, so I bet hopefully it can play Song of Iron on a phone.
Yeah, PUBG's There's I've seen some really like Bloodstained. That one recently got ported, which I mean that makes sense. But yeah, it's interesting that there's going to be this kind of uniform approach with Xbox having the platform, the PC, and then mobile streaming, and then some games are going to have the touch as well. So I'm
It's cool.
I'm interested to see like how simple that is because they're making it sound like anyone can do it. So I mean, I guess
Yeah,
you'll be finding out soon if
sounds
really,
great. Yeah,
yeah,
I'll let you guys know.
if anyone truly can do it. We have a question from Mr. Joanna Dark, and I guess this is a question for aspiring game makers out there. What engines or tools would you recommend to start with? And are there any like videos or elements that you find helpful when it comes to like game design?
Yeah, I'm using Unreal Engine. Unity is also really good, and then I think there's a couple other sort of like free-ish engines that are out there, and if you find the right crowd, they'll swear that they're the best one. It really depends on what you're making and kind of where your skill sets are. Unreal's perfect for me as an artist because it's super artist friendly with the blueprint system and stuff. Um, but so I would recommend Unreal hands down, but there are other really good options. Tools, I think Blender would probably be the next one you want, which is the free 3D software package, which will get you a whole chunk of the rest of your game stuff you need. And then there's random other, like forget what it's called. There's like a free Photoshop and stuff like that. There's tons of videos out there that are good. Like the best thing I could suggest to anybody who just wants to start getting into making games is to open Unreal or Unity and try to remake asteroids. It can be boxes floating around the screen. Just start really small and just start to understand what's happening. Do not try to like make Breath of the Wild as the
Your
first thing
first
you've ever
go.
done. It'll turn you off from the process because it will be so hard and you'll get lost in a detail that's not important. I did it many times, like throughout the time of me trying to start my own stuff. Like it's so much better to think of it like practice or training and to just do little mini projects that at any moment you could just delete and you'll be fine with. Yeah, GIMP. Thank you. That was the one I was thinking of. That's the free Photoshop GIMP.
Oh, okay, rad,
Um,
rad.
but yeah, that would be my suggestion for anything. And then when you start those little projects, you can ask really specific questions like, "How do I shoot a projectile?" If you're doing asteroids, and then you'll find an answer for that, and you'll be able to make that work. Instead of saying like, "How do you build the time stopping ability from this game?" And it'll be like this huge thing. You're like, "Well, I don't know what I'm doing here anymore." So
I'm just looking at
that'd
this
be
and I'm overwhelmed, and
yeah,
now I don't ever want to look at this again.
yeah. It can be tough, but just start googling. I do some stuff. I talk about animation a bunch for games, and I kind of go through the process a little bit and some of my process. It's not a massive channel, but it's just a little pseudo Song of Iron behind the scenes thing that I do too. If that's interesting for people.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what is your approach to making realistic animation without mocap? Because I assume there's no mocap involved for this.
There's no mocap involved. I think I mean, part of it is just that I've been doing it for a really long time. I think the study of motion is a huge part of it. A lot of new animators tend to um, not necessarily regard physics as accurately as they are. Um, a great example in a melee attack. A lot of people will do these huge haymakers because the swing size then is massive. It's my hand is fully extended all the way around, so I have this really big motion. When realistically, people keep power close until the last second and they push it out, right? And it's a subtle thing or a very obvious thing depending on your perspective of it, but it really changes the feeling from like a comic book action to a realistic action when you start doing these little things. Like if you were to break down each one of my animations, it would be very clearly hand animated, not mocap, I think. But just combining that with just the right few little flavors of things, and people definitely get the impression, which is intentional, that it's realistic uh, and grounded and stuff.
So do you study a lot of like combat videos, or where are you pulling this inspiration for these realistic like fighting techniques?
There's a little bit of that. For the most part, I think once you understand a few of the core concepts and like truly kind of breathe them, I guess, then you can kind of do a little bit of anything with it. It's just always baking that into the plan. The best examples we use all the time is a baseball pitch and a baseball swing, because they use so much physicality for those, and it's real, right? And you can, if you can mimic those and understand why that's working so well, then you can go really really far with animation.
Cool.
It's fun. I could talk about that all day.
I know so you've been doing animation how long did you say again?
About 15 years.
15 years, that's right.
Yeah. 16 was school, 17 was school. Yeah. But that's crazy. It feels way too long. I should be better than I am for that.
I mean, that's like, for me, that was like the first thing that I noticed when I first saw anything of Song of Iron, was I noticed how like animated the characters were. Like I've seen tons of 2D like beat 'em up like action games, but that is definitely one thing that caught my eyes, how kind of like realistic the impacts were for all these characters fighting. And so initially that's what really pulled my attention to the project, was seeing that and be like, wow, just looking at the way these characters fight is a lot different than what I expect from your average kind of side-scrolling action game.
Yeah, little indie studio too, right? Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love hearing that, because that's the one thing that should actually be working out.
That's what I've been doing. Yeah. It's one thing I'm gonna nail with this.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, it'll be good to like spend the last month just like going through and polishing all the animation, because so much is like really quickly done. Because I need to move on to the things that are really hard for me, and spend a day animating like a bunch of stuff on one character, and then a week trying to figure out one system.
Yeah,
as an engineer.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, so it's a balance.
So you said this was going to be kind of more of a shorter experience. Do you have like an estimated length that you're aiming for with this?
Yeah, I think if people play through like their third time and kind of knew all the answers, I think if you were right around 2 hours, maybe a little under, would be perfect for me.
Okay, cool.
I know it's like that's pretty short for a game these days, but I would rather you be done and want more of it than you be like, okay, is this done yet? I'm like, oh, I remember this part. I hate this part. Like, can we skip? Like, I just want really clean and just do what I do as well as I can. So which is, I think, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's huge, because like so many games nowadays, I don't know if it's to justify the $60, $70 price tag, feel the need to be just insanely packed with arbitrary content. Like there's so much content and bloat in games now that it's not necessarily fun or interesting or innovative. It's just there to like say that this game is 50 hours. So
here's a map with a ton of icons on it. Why don't you go and check out every single one of those?
So of this 50-hour game, I love 20 hours, and the other 30 I just did just to do.
Yeah, and there's another 50 if you really want, right?
I don't. I really don't.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So no, this. I mean, my hope is that for the most part, you could do this in one sitting. A decent sitting, but one sitting, and just the part of that too is to not take you out of it ever. Like you have the opportunity to jump into this world and not leave it until the end, and just fully, immerse into it. Uh, Potentially play it again because there's maybe some reason to play again just to see what's going on the whole time. And I'm thinking about a little bit of a new game plus just for people who really liked it and just want more time with it.
Oh, cool.
Start with all the gear or whatever, something super simple, but just like keep going and build up your stamina even more so you can go super ham or whatever.
Yeah, just I want that power fantasy to go through it again, just dominating everything. Yeah.
Someone's asking about difficulty. I might have like a super simple story mode, like so that anyone could play and just experience the game. But most likely there will be kind of just one difficulty. We'll see. We'll see how if I can make that system pretty simple, and I can just ratchet up damage and ratchet down reaction times or whatever it might be, potentially. But I'm not planning on it right now. Cool. Jonah likes the shorter experiences. It's good to hear.
Yeah,
I mean, Inside was similar, and that's kind of where I hit that mark for myself. Was kind of watching theirs, which is crazy because they have a full team too. But I'll do what they did. I don't know.
Yeah. There's one guy. I'm gonna nail that. I'm gonna nail that for you.
It's sort of in the long movie, time frame, I guess. But
yeah, it's really refreshing to see experiences like that because you can really kind of sit down, get absorbed in it, and just play it through like a movie. I don't know if you've played What Remains of Edith Finch. That's kind of like a similar vibe for me.
Yeah.
Different style of game, obviously, but that is a game that's meant to be like taken in one sitting. So it's maybe 2.5 hours tops, but really engaging experience. And I'm a big fan and supporter of those. Like I said already, I'm really over every single game having this need to be 30 plus hours.
So
you better be like my time's valuable. All right, you better make your game worth 30 plus hours if that's the expectation for me to play through it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's appealing to know a game is shorter because I'm busy with stuff, and it'd be awesome to be able to play that game, whatever it might be.
I want to finish the experience. I don't want to get 20 hours in and be like, I'm done. I'm really done with this, and I don't. I looking online. How long to beat? 50 plus hours. Well, I'm at 24, so I'll just pack it up.
Right.
I'm under 50%.
Now,
Just gonna pack it in.
Completion 30%.
3%. Yeah. And I know people want that, and I know that obviously there's a need. Some people want that 100 plus hour Assassin's Creed Odyssey experience.
Oh, totally.
There's got to be a balance. Every game can't be 30 plus hours.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I'm thinking about the story mode too, where every enemy is basically one shot, just so you can move through it and like experience it. If you have an hour, an hour and a half or something, you can just blow through the game.
Super chat from Faisal007. Are you excited for Hellblade 2? Joe, are you excited for Hellblade 2?
I am super excited for Hellblade 2. I cannot wait. I mean, that's one of the games I'm most excited about, I think, right now. We don't know a ton about it, but I mean, the first one was awesome, but what they've been showing visually, it just looks like crazy stunning.
That first trailer, I'm not even exaggerating when I say it's the trailer I've probably watched the most times of any video game trailer. I don't know what it was, like the music, the presentation, the world, everything about it. I was sold. Like, we haven't really seen any gameplay, but yeah.
That was a perfect teaser trailer, right?
Perfect.
It showed you chaos. It showed you something you were familiar with, like Vikings walking and a troll, and then some weird song that this his character was singing, and she looked amazing. Doing it right,
that game is definitely. Well, I don't know when we'll see it, but I can't wait for that game. That game looks absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of people like in the chat talking about Hellblade with the whole like kind of Viking theme here, but
yeah, totally.
oh, Talus Gaming. What game is being shown and for what system? So this is Song of Iron. It's going to be releasing on Xbox platforms and Steam as well. And then if you're just tuning in, we have Joe Winter, who's the man behind the project here. Solo developer outside of audio. Shout out to the audio team.
Yeah, yeah. Audio guys are doing a great job. I definitely couldn't have good audio without them. So, and the music will be great for it. We just bought a tagla harpa for the music. If anybody knows what that is, that's like a traditional Nordic violin-ish instrument that will do tons of cool stuff for the sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we're really excited about that.
Is that what's used in your trailer that you've shown so far, or
I think that's an actual just a violin and maybe a cello in there a little bit, but we'll eventually replace most, if not all, the string stuff with the tagla harpa stuff.
Okay, nice.
Which will be really awesome. Yeah.
So is that the
We're trying
composer?
to find.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's the composer that did the trailer and did the music in the demo is the composer working on the game.
Okay, cool.
And he's singing. He's singing in that too.
Oh, really?
He's done all the vocals.
Oh, that's cool.
which
Yeah,
is-
that song is super epic
Yeah.
in the trailer, so I was
yeah,
pretty stoked on that.
Very excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with, I guess transitioning a little bit, what games are you most excited about right now? Like with current gen launching, what games are you most looking forward to as a gamer?
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, Hellblade is a great one. I'm very much looking forward to that coming. I just started playing Fallen Order, which I'm a little late to, but I've been very excited about that. So I'm very excited to be playing that now. I'm 5 minutes into it or something. What's the other one? God of War. Super loved the most recent one. Obviously, another kind of Nordic kind of in the realm of where my headspace is right now. But that game was astoundingly well designed. That could probably go in that like perfect design list or pretty close to it. I think I had a few minor gripes, but they're like more personal things than
Actual
legitimate
fundamental
issues.
things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just what an incredible game. So I cannot wait for the second one. I hope they manage to maintain that thing that they found with that one, which is very hard to do.
Which is it's hard to successfully reinvent a game like that, and then two have it be like one of the biggest games of the decade. Mm-hmm. Like I did not expect God of War to come back in that way at all.
Yeah, it showed that you can shift, your game to a new realm-ish, which is really exciting. Because I hope a few more franchises like follow that a little bit. But what else? That's a good one. I need to catch up. I've been pretty heads down on
this, trying to get this out the door. Yeah, understandable.
Yeah. It's a tough one. I think Little Nightmares 2. I played the demo. I'm pretty excited about that. That's a pretty crazy one. That was part of the demo, the Steam Festival demo stuff for Game Awards, and
Little Nightmares 1 was really, really cool. That art team absolutely crushed it. That game has such a unique presentation. Like it's kind of Burton-esque, kind of stop motion-esque, but it's one of those games that nothing looks like it. Like
yeah, totally. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I don't know. There's a lot.
There's a list. It's overwhelming when you actually look at the list of everything that's coming out. You're like, oh my god.
Which is super fun. I mean, I think a lot of the exclusives that are coming, in this next year, or we don't really know, are going to be fun. I find myself really liking more niche games the older I get. Like, if someone like fixed DayZ ever and like released a good version of it, I would play that like endlessly.
The ongoing saga of DayZ, just tragic. It's tragic.
Yes, that is the perfect word. I could go into an enormous spiel about how they ruined something that could have been amazing. It birthed the biggest game type that we've ever seen, right? Which is PUBG and all that stuff. It came from DayZ. and yet they ground that thing into
Just
dust
botched
somehow.
it. Just somehow, like, I remember playing DayZ as like an Arma 3 mod way back in the day. Like my
Yeah,
buddy's like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
dude, DayZ, you got to check it out. It's a mod for Arma. It's a zombie survival game. And I'm like, what? So I download this Arma 3, which I had no interest in whatsoever. I like booted it up as the base game. I'm like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah,
He's like,
what
trust
is
me, dude.
this?
Install the mod. And we ended up playing that for like weeks
Yeah,
and weeks and weeks on end.
yeah. Break your legs, fall in a quarter of a flight of stairs, crawl through a town. I
Uh,
mean, like, it had problems, but that game was amazing. It had amazing bones to it, and they just destroyed it with standalone and then whatever. Some people like it, the standalone stuff, but like they lost it. They lost
they
something.
definitely lost it. It was not the same experience at all. They
Yeah.
tried to, I guess, modernize it in the wrong ways, and they lost like the
Mm.
heart of what.
They took the wrong lessons from what was good about it, I
Mhm.
think. But
Yeah,
I mean, it birthed Fortnite, it birthed PUBG. Those games exist because of DayZ.
because of this weird Arma 3 zombie mod.
Yeah, because that guy went on and modded something else. Then he worked for H1Z1 for a bit, and then then he made PUBG. I mean that he he birthed that genre, which is crazy. But
And
anyway,
Epic
I
is
get
riding
yeah,
that all the way to the bank.
yeah, and then they did to that stuff what League of Legends did to Dota, right? They
Mhm.
said, what if we just made it easier for everyone to play, simplify it? Here you go,
Here you go. And
biggest game
biggest
ever,
game ever,
basically.
ever. It's wild.
Yeah.
Faisal007 Super Chat Hype asks, what is
Hey.
next beyond this project? We touched on this a little bit, but
Um, I would love for the game to do well enough that I can continue on. I feel safe enough that I left my day job to pursue this full time. The support I've gotten, the wish list count that I'm at, all that sort of stuff that like kind of helps predict where things are going is in a good state. Um, but part of those numbers too made me want to put everything I could into it to kind of give the support back, if that makes sense. So the hope would be to continue on with the Song of Iron world. I think there's a ton of really cool stuff to go with. Once everybody experiences the story, they will hopefully like it and then want to see what else is out there and what else is part of the world and stuff. And I would love to. I have a trilogy kind of in my head, um,
oh.
and part of that was one of those things. Is like, don't make this too big. Cut this in three pieces. Just you know. And so there's this part of me who thinks of the first one as like the demo in a way. It's like, play this. I hope you guys do well. You like it. I don't want to do a Kickstarter necessarily. I'd rather sell you a product
Mhm.
or like give you something instead of just asking for money. Um, and so I hope people really like this because I have a lot more in my head that I would like to put out there. And the goal though would be to always stay small. I think imagining the dream coming true, having maybe 5 people as part of the studio. And I think my brain is like 3 animators, a modeler, and an engineer. And because I, as an animator, was able to do what we've got here, getting a couple more people that I know that have the same mindset, I think we could do some really, really cool stuff. So we'll see how that goes. That's sort of like everything goes perfectly
Everything,
world.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but if just me is able to continue, then that's also we'll be really excited.
And so how
And then
do you have a price in mind
eventually I'll
or
eventually I'll fix DayZ, but it
okay,
won't be
that's gonna
DayZ. We'll
okay.
we'll name it something else.
So Song of
That's like
Iron
I'm
1 through
doing this,
3 and then DayZ. And
and then yeah, I'll go back to where I started, which was I can make DayZ.
yeah, I can go,
That's
yeah.
really big.
I got 3 games under my belt. It's time to make
Yeah,
DayZ. Let's go.
yeah, yeah. So we'll see. No promises there. That's like 10 years from now. I don't
Yeah, yeah.
know. um, but yeah,
So, how do you
more.
determine price? Is that something you've like had in mind when you were developing this, or how do you go about determining how much you're going to charge for an experience
Yeah,
like this?
it's changed over time. My kind of where my thought was for a really long time. I just avoided thinking about it because it felt weird.
Hmm.
I want to give a price that feels realistic to people. Um, I would rather. I would rather have more people play at a cheaper price than less people play because it's expensive or something. Um, People also, there's also like a thing within the indie community around not underpricing stuff because it can give a bad precedent. And then, if I were to charge $5, for example, it would take a lot of copies for it to be a sustainable thing for me. And then people will see this for $5. They'll expect other games to be of that price that look similar, that maybe aren't similar. It's hard to say.
Hmm.
So it's a lot about comparing. Honestly, I ask people when they ask me, it's like, I don't know yet. What does this look like to you? Like,
Yeah.
um, and everybody's kind of in the same ballpark, um, give or take. I mean, maybe people can respond. Like, I'm in the $15 to $20 range right now. Is kind of where my mind's at, and that's for the 2 hour ish experience made by one and a half people, kind of, if you count the audio team or whatever you might do. So it's a tough one, and look, Falconeer is like a good one to look at. I think Tom, who is another solo developer,
Yeah.
charged 25 for that. But that's like this huge open world game, so it's hard to totally compare them necessarily. But if anything, if I were to charge 20, then he would have been undercharging for his, most likely, because it is a massive experience by comparison. But it's not always about time doesn't equal money, right? And that's a bad precedent too.
Exactly. And
Uh,
that's why we have so many 50
but
plus hour open world
yeah, because they're trying to
triple A
justify
games.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're gonna pay $60 one time this month, please do ours because you can
Because
play
you get
all.
100 hours of, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so I'm kind of somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's an interesting thing to talk about. Because like for you, like you've talked about, this has been 2 years, like 2 years that you've been working on it. So I'm sure like
Yeah.
trying to determine a price that's fair, but also like respects the work that you put into it is probably like a kind of a weird
Yeah.
conversation to have with yourself since you're the only one kind of doing it.
Yeah, and then there's the sort of the less exciting business side of ways to think about it. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
if I want to pay myself as, for the next, let's say 3 years, I want to pay for the next game or something, 3 years. So I have to make this much money to be good. So then you just calculate that out. That means I need to sell this many copies at this much money. Like, what is the likely amount of copies I'll sell? You take out taxes, you take out, Steam, what Steam charges, or what Xbox charges, which is like 30%. And then all of a sudden, this much money becomes this much money. And and then you get all that, and then um yeah, it's a fun one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Super fun. Super. Yeah.
yeah.
Super fun
It's
business.
honestly the worst. I just wish like I didn't have to worry about that stuff. It's one of the things that's like, oh god, I don't like this side of things because
Yeah, but it's
it's awkward.
you gotta eat. You gotta be able to
Gotta eat, yeah.
sustain the development of the projects, and yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I quit my job. I feel safe. The support's been awesome. Can't say it enough
good,
times. And
good. That's awesome.
I want to repay that support by going all in. So yeah, I don't know. It's this weird circle of stuff, but
Another super chat from Faisal 007. What made you select this certain art style? Was there anything that drew you to this particular style?
The art style I actually sort of fell into in a way. I look the inside, which was a huge inspiration early on. Um, though very different than this, it had the mood that I really liked. So I thought, like, if I could kind of find that mood, that'd be awesome. Um, the silhouetting was actually an accident. I just turned all the lights off, and the fog lit the background, and so it just kind of like instantly worked. And I said, "Well, this looks very cool. I will stick with that for nighttime stuff. I really like that." And then Unreal bought Quixel, which is a mega scan company. Basically, they take 1,000 pictures of a rock. A computer makes that a 3D rock that is a perfect recreation of the rock, and they bought them, which was this massive library of beautiful assets. And so I've been using a lot of that stuff. You used to have to pay for it. Unreal, it's free. So I've been using a ton of those assets and reworking them where I need to and stuff. But and that sort of little things like that slowly inform the art style. Um, And then the third thing, which had been a thing I think about for a really long time, was just if you do a game that's constrained to a view, you can pump a ton of visuals into it because there's no risk of a player looking around a bunch and just try like needing to render stuff 360 at this crazy scale. I can really just make this little piece look really good, and then as you move, all you have to see is that one shot. So systems can handle what like normally would be really difficult, I think. And I'm just, I'm not the most efficient person, so it could get even better. And that's one of those things I'd be excited about for future projects. Was like I've learned so much. Give me one or two more people, and we could make like crazy cool stuff.
Somebody who can
But,
like focus on optimization, like little details
yeah,
and stuff like that.
more optimization. Yeah, just more time, all that kind of stuff. But I'm super happy with where it's at. I mean, there's a lot of parts where I'm just calling done in the game right now. It's like this is shipped as far as it's concerned, and I feel really confident in it. And, it's one of the things I think that people are finding appealing. I mean, people could tell me if I'm wrong about that, but uh, yeah. And I just love, which is a DayZ thing almost. Like I love realistic stuff, and when it's, I think there's a lot of interest in realism when we go into these fantasy worlds that we like to escape into. And I don't mean like you don't have a day job or something and you're doing paperwork for the game, but like, it's like this feels like it could really be a place. So when I go here, I'm actually part of this real world that's not my world, if that makes sense. And I always really love that stuff. And so that's sort of what drives a lot of that decision making.
Nice. So it's
Yeah.
grounded in realism, but it's not any sort of real world that we know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Cool.
you should feel like you could go to one of these places. Would be the hope.
Cool. Nice.
Sometimes, yeah.
Well, sweet. Well, I think we're going to start wrapping things up here. Joe, thanks so much for taking some time to hang out and fielding all these questions about Song of Iron. There's a lot of people that are really excited about it. I'm really excited about it. I'm a huge fan of 2D puzzle platformers. Like Inside, for me, one of my favorite games of the generation. Like I love that team. Limbo was great. So I'm excited to see what the final project of this looks like. I'm excited about the idea of having this focus on combat in addition to the puzzle solving, because I mean, just watching this, like the combat itself looks really fun. It looks really engaging. So outside of progressing through this world, I don't think it'll get old just throwing an axe in someone's forehead. So I like that there's that dynamic to it.
Yeah, I still have fun doing that. So I hope that people, and I've played way too much of that stuff. Yeah.
Have you played thousands of hours? How many hours have you played this? If you had to quantify.
That's a good question. At hundreds at least. I mean, just constant, restarting and testing and trying. And, there was a lot of feedback about the troll being really difficult for some people. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like I thought he was really easy because like I can't.
You just destroy him at the.
When he didn't break, which he did break a little bit in the demo, but it's gonna happen.
It's gonna exactly.
But yeah, that's why I'm lucky. I have some good friends in games, so I can have them play test it and show me how it actually is like for a new player compared to someone who's played hundreds of hours and shot hundreds of arrows and all that sort of
created stuff. All the systems and knows the ins and outs. Yeah. This is easy. I don't know what you're talking about.
This is really, I don't know why anybody's having problems.
Oh, what another super chat hype from Faisal 007. Inside is my perfect indie game. What's yours? You have a perfect indie game.
It's a tough one. I mean, Inside might be that game.
It's up there for me for sure.
It's really, really good. I don't, and then I think maybe Journey would be the next one on the list, or interchangeable depending on my mood. I played Journey front to back, like I think 3 times in a row when I like sat down and I basically played for 4 hours or 5 hours. I thought it's a weird game because it's so different in a way, but it just is amazing.
And so you played that 3 times in a row the first time you played it?
I think I did. I played it and I was like, wow, I want to do that again. And then, you get your extra scarf and your paint has changed on your kind of cape thing.
Hmm.
And I thought, "Ooh, maybe there's more here." And I went through and I looked up. It's like, "You could become a white one." And I was like, I was like continuing on, and I just played it a ton. And I loved it. It turned into more of an analytical thing because I was like, "Why is this so good?"
Yeah, why am I
So
playing
there
this
was no.
game 3 times in a row? Like,
Mhm. Yeah, and even then, in the third time, I meet somebody and then we start chirping at each other, and I'm like, I'm having an experience. I care about this other person. I don't know them at all. Whatever. Um, yeah, incredible, incredible game.
yeah, that's Inside's. I guess I'll do my top three. I would probably say Inside, What Remains of Edith Finch, and then Shovel Knight. I guess when it comes to like 3 indie
Yeah,
games, that Shovel Knight was one that I played in one sitting, and that wasn't even that short of a game. I think it was like
right.
10 hours. I played
Yeah,
Shovel Knight in one
yeah.
sitting. I was like,
That's awesome.
this game is amazing. I mean, it's nostalgic, it's retro, it's not necessarily doing anything new, but it's taking all these established ideas and formulas and blending them in a way that just like super satisfying for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a lot of what I'm trying to do. I think I look different than like a lot of the retro side scrolly stuff, but my brain is in that place in a lot of ways. I people describe it this way a lot, and it's the best compliment. It's totally where I was like, what would you know Castlevania look like now if they just remade Castlevania, but with the technology. I'm obviously not making a vampire whip game, but it's like just put that world into the new stuff, but don't go to a third person God of War game. Make the game that's so good, just change the visuals. So yeah, yeah, stuff. I love. I don't know. I
Yeah.
love it.
And speaking of that, I'd love to see an actual modern Castlevania game, but maybe one
Yeah,
day
let's do that.
Konami will
Yeah,
sell
who
the
knows?
IP to someone else or Cool. Well, I appreciate again.
Yeah,
Thanks so much for taking some time. Really appreciate you hanging out. I'm gonna shut the old stream down. Thanks to everyone who hung out and watched. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for all the super chats. And we will catch you guys next Saturday.
thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and thanks everybody for coming and watching.
Go. All right. Have a good one, everybody.